Good morning, everybody. Sorry I'm quiet. I'm still trying to pin this thing to the top, and I think I figured out how to do it, which is shocking. All right. Hi, Fran and Julie and Carol and Brina and Lisa, Wanda, Denise. Thank you all for sharing. Good morning, Donna. Hi, Pamela. Hi, Diana. So I kind of, I will say, got a slight fluster going on. I had to actually go to my actual work and do some tests this morning because if not, I can't work. So I knew I wanted to try to fit that in, which I got most of it done. And I had some ideas to do for this live today. But for some reason, when I was driving, I was like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot what it was that I wanted to do. So that's why I kind of put those three things on there. I said we could make the wreath builder or the wreath card, which is this. I just popped this one out yesterday. I thought it was pretty fun. I think in hindsight, I would make this wreath part a little bit lighter so the stamp colors would shine through. So we could do this. Or the other thing I've been playing with, and I have a great idea, actually, believe it or not, the Rainbow Stamper and I were, we were brainstorming this morning, and we thought of an incredible card that we're going to share with you guys later. But we're going to have to make a lot of it ahead of time. But I thought we could also use the Pop On By Thinlits, which is this. I didn't actually attach this yet because I was decorating it. So we could do a pop-up card. And then the other thing I thought we could do is we could do a simple card if you guys want to do a simple card. Or I have a one-sheet wonder that needs to be put together because I know some people asked that last week. And I'll tell you what, if I don't get to whatever it is that you ask for, I promise I will do a video. This one I can actually show you. It was not my idea. I know that Gina K has a wreath builder, and then I actually followed Wendy Cranford's directions to make this template to make a wreath builder, which was genius. And she said she got her idea from a lot of other people, so I'm definitely not claiming any credit on this. But I made it, and it was really simple. And the cool part is you can make the wreath any size you want because there's a couple different ways you can size down. So if we don't get to this today, I promise I'll do a video on it. But also, the other one I had to share, I did this before. This was from our last stamp class where we did a reflection stamp. So this was a great one to do as well. So let's see, the house. You have it. You know what? I'm going to tell you what, Fran, this house is way easier than the roller coaster. So yesterday we were fooling around and he wanted a roller coaster card, so I made this one. And this one is still really complicated because you can't really get it to close 100% flat, whereas this one, now granted it doesn't go 100%, but it definitely goes a little bit more flat. But these little dudes here are still really difficult to bend. And I bought this because I loved it, but it is complicated to use. I will tell you that 100%. The house is way less complicated. It's so much easier to use. So all of them. Well, I don't have all day because I do have to pick him up from school, but if I could, Fran, I would absolutely all of them. So the house is real. It's not hard. The house isn't hard at all. I promise you. The house is pretty simple. This is one where I almost thought to myself, why in God's great green earth did I even buy this die? It's so cute, but it's painful. Okay, let's see. We got the house. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. And I see Suzanne likes the wreath. I know there's too many darn choices. That's the problem. I've given too many choices. Okay, and we could do a simple card. So I'll just show you this real quick. Let me see. Did I leave it out? Hold on. So the house has a stamp set, and then it also has a die that goes with it. Let's see if I can grab this real quick. So it has this is the die. So it has a house, or you can like get this extra stuff to be able to decorate it. So if you notice here, whoopsie, there's a little like a little stone path, and he picked blue because he wanted a blue house. So you could make it different. What I did was actually cut two of them and I overlaid it on here, but I didn't really glue it down super well. So this is just an overlay with the white, and then I put the stone on the front. And then it has these little flowers you could do. You could do pumpkins, and it has a die to cut both of these out. It has a die for the curtains. So if you wanted to put curtains on the inside, you could put curtains there. And then you could do like the trees in the background if you were doing the house. It's got a lot of stuff. It has a lot of really good coordination parts, but also parts that if you didn't buy the die, for example, you don't have to. You could just buy the house. But it's really, really cute, and it's much easier. So these two, if you buy them together, you do get a 10% discount. Okay, is the die bigger than the stamp? Yes, significantly. So here's the stamp, and here's the die, just for comparison. It's much bigger. So the die, when you do it, you do have to do it on a crosswise card. It will not, because of the points of the house, it won't fit on a card that is skinny. As you can see, where is that piece that I just had here a second ago? I hope I didn't throw it away. Maybe I did. I don't know. Oh, I have so much stuff on this desk. It's really kind of ridiculous. But anyway, I think I might have just chucked it. So if you do it on the skinny part of the house, here it is. It actually cuts off the sides. So this is where I got this overlay part from, which was in here. And what I did was I trimmed it out because it actually cuts the points off. So you can't do it on a vertical card. It has to be a hamburger or a wide card. So I just took this extra little piece that I had and laid it on top. But you could have done it with the white instead. So you could have a white roof and then the blue house. So there's lots of options. But you could also cut this out just if you wanted that piece. It does perforate really well. And you can see it bends really nicely. So it's very simple to use, especially compared to the roller coaster. I'll tell you that for 100% for sure. You have a problem making, you know what, Pamela, I am the same way. I always have like a million. So you close it. So this one is what it looks like closed. It does, a tiny piece sticks out of the top there with the roof. But otherwise it is pretty flat. I mean, it's got a little girth to it, but I think it should still go in an envelope perfectly fine. And I did trim it down so they would be layered. That way it has like a little layer in between. So you probably could make it a little smaller if you wanted to. Okay, so let's see. What do we have? I got Pop On By. I've got a wreath and a one-sheet wonder. Man, Luann, you have high expectations for this morning, don't you? Okay, I see several wreaths. The reflection, Pamela, you might just need to get a different stamp. That's the only thing. But it's pretty simple because I actually did this reflection card with a stamp. So again, we can do that. Maybe we can do that on, if I can manage to get back on here on Friday morning, maybe we can do one of the opposite ones then. Okay, so I see a lot of wreaths. So I'm going to go with the wreath for now. And I promise you, I will put all of these other ones on the side. And I will either jump back on at some point and make one of the other ones, or I promise you I will make videos and post them. So I have this one here. I'll put that on the side. And then this one is a really, really good one. And let me move all this stuff over. And then I got another thing. So the only thing we have to choose now is we could do the bouquet, but the Tropical Chic was really neat. So I would like to stick with that one if you guys don't mind. And I'm going to put these on the side and we will do these. I'm going to sit them right here next to my desk so I will remember to do them. And I also promise I will do a, I'll do a one-sheet wonder video as well. So I just have to make some time. I also want to redo my aquarium card. If you guys remember that aquarium card I made, since we have the rectangle thinlits, I think it'll make it so much easier to make. All right, let me move these other little things out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to just tell you the quick version of how to make this. And again, this was not my idea, so I'm not taking any credit for it whatsoever. But this one. It's very simple, but it does have a couple steps. But this is what you actually can end up making if you wanted to, because you could make these pretty much any size. So this one right here is 5 inches. But you could do a 4, a 3.5, or a 3. The other thing you could do too is you could end up just cutting this down if you wanted to. So you could kind of have it to the side. But I'm going to tell you what you need for this. And again, Wendy Cranford had a great video that she created. That's where I got this template from. Let me move some of this stuff out of the way. So if you're going to make this wreath builder, because Stampin' Up! Does not carry a wreath builder, I don't even know what you would call it. It's kind of like it's like an inlay. So the one that Gina K made is an inlay. So this one we kind of just made ours opposite. So you do need a piece of window sheet, and this piece of window sheet is 7.5 by 7.5 because it fits in the Stamparatus. So I'm sure you could probably do this another way. Let me put this under so you can see. But if you do it, it fits really well in the Stamparatus, which makes it super easy to be able to use. Okay, so this is cut to fit this specifically. So you need a window sheet that's 7.5 by 7.5. And if you're going to start, let me grab a piece of scrap paper. Now I have 8 million pieces here. Real quickly, just in case, I'll use the other side of this. Paper Pumpkin, you get an extra free stamp set if you sign up for a Paper Pumpkin subscription, or you renew, or you come back. So you have to sign up by March 10th. So what we need, how you like that? I have things on both sides, so it's no big deal. What we're going to do to start is we're going to cut this down to be 5 by 5. So I'm going to just show you quickly how you do this. I will do a clean, much more in-depth redo version when we're done. So if you want it to be 5 by 5, okay, that's what you would do. You have to have a 5 by 5 piece of paper. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. Printer paper is fine. I actually used some of my scrap paper from 31 to make mine the other day, so it had stuff written all over it. Okay, but basically, I'm going to pull this out just to give you a quick version. Let me open this up. So what you need to do is you need a piece of grid paper because it makes it really simple. So if you don't have grid paper, this is really helpful. What you're going to do is you're going to take your paper, whatever, it has to be square. That's basically what it boils down to. You're going to take your paper and you're going to fold it in half like that. And then you're going to fold it in half like that. And again, when I redo this video, I'll do it with white paper so you can see better. So what you need are these lines. That way you can see where to line things up. So then what you're going to do is you're going to take your paper and you're going to line your lines up with the crosshairs here. So you have these crosshairs on this. So you're going to line your crosshair here and then your fold here. So I'm going to scoot this up a little bit. And the good part about this, because this has the square grids, it makes it really easy to follow. So then I'm going to just do this with a pencil so I can do it over again. So then you're going to take a black pen or a black marker because it's easier to see, and you're going to trace this on your grid. And whoever thought of this workaround originally, which I have no idea who it was a genius because it's such a good idea. So then you're going to take your points. So now you're going to line up the points of all 4 with the lines. So we're going to line it up. We're going to make sure this lines up here. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing again. So I have my points, all 4 points are lined up with the line. So we're going to do the same thing again. You're going to just trace. Oops, and you do want to kind of make sure you're on the edge. But quite honestly, I kind of thought that if you wanted to do these more than one, you really could just draw your corners on. That way you don't have to have a million lines. So now all you're going to do is you would have a scrap of Whisper White. Let's see, here I have it. Nope, that's watercolor paper. Don't want to use that. Let me just grab a piece of Whisper White, because after this we'll make it and then you'll understand a little bit more. So I'm going to just trim this down to 5 by 5, or again, whatever size square you're wanting to use, and then this is going to be what we'll end up using. Okay, so we're not using this yet. So now what you have to do is you would cut your piece of 7.5 by 7.5 window sheet. So Stampin' Up! Does sell window sheet, or if you happen to have some large window sheet from something. So then what you're going to do is you're going to kind of line this up. Now granted, I know this already has the squares on it, so do your best to just imagine it's not there. So you're going to kind of line this up so it's kind of slightly in the middle of where. So again, you can see your squares. You just want to make sure that everything kind of lines up square. And then you're going to take a ruler and a Sharpie. And the reason I say a Sharpie is because it will stay on there pretty much no matter what. So you would take your Sharpie, and again, you're going to make sure you have this pushed down, that you're kind of in the corners. And while you hold it, you match up to the lines underneath, and then you just trace the line. So you go all around the square, all around the second square, and then when you do, it will look like this. Okay, so I'm going to show you, and I think I probably did not leave a Sharpie out. I'm going to show you, just for the sake of showing you exactly what to do, I'm going to do one of these smaller ones just so you can see it. So the good part is once you do it once, you can kind of line it back up onto your box. So we'll do it this way first, and we're going to do the square part. And what I did was I just wrote what size square I would need next to it on my template paper. So what I'm going to do, let me grab my Sharpie, is I'm going to make the smaller one. So I'm going to do the 3-inch square on the inside. That way you can see how to trace it. So you can use like a fine point Sharpie would probably work fine. You can use a thick one. They do have also Sharpies, and I don't have any up here right now, that have a permanent, it's a permanent Sharpie. So those are supposed to be like if you were to wash your clothes, you can put it through. So again, I have this lined up. So it's lined up with the squares. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the straight line first. So I'm going to do my 3-inch. So when we're finished, you'll see that move. So you're going to just line up your ruler and trace the line. Okay. Whoop. See, I already moved it off. You could probably put a little piece of, like a little bit of snail or something if you wanted to hold it in place. That way you don't have to worry about moving it. But quite honestly, it's pretty easy to line back up. But if it's something where it's going to bother you that it keeps wiggling, that's a good idea to try. So do that, and then the last one. But once you do it the first time, honestly, when I did it yesterday, and I really wasn't even really taking my time, it really is, it does go much easier than you think. So then you have your square. So now all you got to do is you have to trace your other line. So I'm going to just leave this right where it is, lined up. And now I'm going to do the inside diamond. Make sure that's right where it needs to be. So I'm just tracing this. And I think you could do something where you could do like offset. Oop, you could do like an offset wreath. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this here. I just have a piece of paper tape. Oop, is that lined up? Hold on. Make sure I have my lines correct. And quite honestly, it's really just for like a centering purpose. So once you do it once, it's not really difficult. And when you're actually stamping your wreath, it works out much simpler. So once you make this guide one time, you don't ever have to make it again. That's the good part. Unless you were to use like some crazy cleaner and you couldn't get it off. So there you have it. So now you have your 3-inch square. So if you wanted to, you could even take your Sharpie and you could put 3 here. That way you knew which size paper it was. You could put a 5 here. So see that underneath. So you have your 5-inch or your 3-inch. Okay, so once you do that once, this is it. So you just would put this on the side and you could just write wreath builder template on it or whatever you wanted to do. Okay, so then what you're going to do, let me move this out of the way, is now you're going to do all your stamping with your Stamparatus. So we're going to, there you go, removable tape. You think the inlay is easier. I totally understand that. And the thing that you could do if you wanted to is you could put like a little piece of snail if you were really concerned that it was going to move. Quite honestly, the reason I did this is because I've been wanting to do it. So you could put like a little piece of snail there, and then that way when you move your thing around, you have like a little tacky piece that'll stick to it. But I did it this way because I really didn't want to buy something else. And at the same time, I really wanted to do this wreath. The other thing you could completely do, and if you don't want to do it this way, is you could punch out whatever are either largest punches or the largest circle die, and you could put it down and trace it, and then you could stamp around it and then just erase it. So that's another way to do it as well. So it really just depends on what you want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same card over again with the Tropical Chic, but I'm going to make it lighter because I think that some of the flowers kind of got lost in the background here. So I'm going to do these images in a lighter color and the flowers darker, and we'll see how that works out instead. So you did cut yours from the window sheet. I guess you could do that as well, Fran. I didn't even think about that. That's another really good idea. So I'm going to use the same thing again. I'm going to use the large one, the small one, the flower, and then for this, actually, I heat embossed that in the center, if you can see that shiny there. So I did heat emboss that on the center. You could use these little, I don't know if these are supposed to be little speckles or whatever they are. And the other thing is, too, you could use this one, too, the Beautiful Bouquet. If you wanted to, you could space out some of these. You could use this as your bouquet part. So this has a lot of options as what you could do with it. So let me just clean this one off because this stamp, I think my niece used this one when she made a card last week. It looks like it's got some black ink on it, but that's okay. I told her, I said, my one thing that I'm going to ask you to do is just please don't put dark into the light. Okay, so now for this, you can, if you decided not to put a piece of tape on there, you could just put your magnet up in the corner because it'll kind of be the most out of the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with mint macaron, and I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to make it stick up a little bit more. So it kind of has more of like a wreathy pattern, if that makes sense. Since I am using these, and I forgot to take out my pad, because I am using, let me start over again. I am using a clear mount stamp, not a cling, but, let's see. So I just want to make sure I really press so it stays on there. So what I'm going to do, let me scoot these over just a little bit, is I'm going to ink this up in mint. And see what it looks like, how dark that is. I'm just not going to press super hard. That is considerably lighter, so that's good. Another color you could do if you wanted to is soft seafoam. So again, I'm going to lift this off, and I'm going to just take this tacky off of here. So, and then all I'm going to do is, so we started with the square, and then we're going to turn to the corner. Truly, at some point, there were many of these that I stamped, and I didn't even bother putting the magnet down again. So it just really depends on how exact, let's put it that way, so it sounds nice instead of saying anal, you want your wreath to be. So then all you're going to do is just build it. You're going to keep turning a quarter turn. The other thing you could do if you wanted to is you can make, you could not do every single quarter turn. You could just turn it to follow the square, or you could turn it just to follow the diamond, which is just, you know, the square in another position. So we'll do this. And the cool part is, so I know some people are probably already thinking, well, what are you going to do to mail this? Well, what you can do is one of two things. You can either go out and buy yourself some specialty envelopes, or what I like to do, and I do this for my cards when I send them to people anyway as thank yous, is I just go and use my envelope builder, and I will make a card. But I will tell you one thing, and I know sometimes people can be a little specific about whether or not their card matches their envelopes. If you mail a square card, it does cost more postage. However, you could make a 5x7 envelope and it's the same price. So you know how in the Hallmark and those, you know, all those stores, they have those big envelopes? They mail for the same. It's more the shape. If you make a square card, it costs extra postage because I believe they have to hand cancel it. So you could do this and just make yourself a bigger envelope out of either heavy Very Vanilla or heavy Whisper White cardstock. So perfectly mailable still. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add this big one, and I'm going to add this in a really light color. So I'm just going to press that down. I'm going to add this in, I think I'm going to do it in soft seafoam, just so there's like something else there, but it's not necessarily, whoops, that moved. Hold on. I didn't press this one hard enough. Let's see where I want this to be. Put it right here for now. And I'm going to press, ooh, so I didn't retro mount these with the cling mount backers, which would have been a good idea because I do love this stamp set. So let me put this here, turn that, and that's pretty light considering, so I think we should still get pretty good coverage. You use rectangle envelopes. You know what? I don't blame you. I don't blame you whatsoever, because postage, you know, postage just went up the other day again. But Postage is not cheap, especially if you have something that's more expensive because of the shape. Which those square cards are dear, don't get me wrong, but if you're going to hand give it to somebody, that's a great idea. If not, put it in a rectangle envelope. And I will tell you one bit of advice. If you are using the envelope maker, you always want to make it about 1/4 of an inch bigger than you think you want to make it. Because if not, you're going to be jamming it in there and something's going to rip. Tell me how many times I learned that lesson the hard way. So, put this here. I didn't even add my magnet on that one. All right, last one. I think this looks much better. Oops, even thus far. Okay, so let me close this up. Now for what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to do Gorgeous Grape because it's pretty dark. Or you could probably do even Rich Razzleberry. Blackberry Bliss might be a bit much. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to plan on this. So I kind of want this hibiscus to be in the middle here. Like that. That way the color will show on that. So I'm going to do Gorgeous Grape. You buy, you know, and it kind of depends. You're right, Suzanne. Oops, I moved that one. That's going to be a little bit off, but that's okay. If you go, we have a big post office by us, which is the Bel Air post office, which is just like a big, you know, a bigger post office. But if I go the other way up the street to Churchville, which really is not, they're probably the same distance apart. It's a smaller post office, kind of like, you know, like one from a long time ago. All right, I need to start putting my magnet down because I keep moving things here because I'm rushing. The guy, if I've gone in there before and I'll say, do I need extra postage on this? Because it's, and he'll say, no, I'll do it for you. So a lot of times I think it really just depends on your post office person. So, oh, almost I got grape on my finger. I got a smudge. That's okay. We'll see if we can figure out something to cover that up. Suzanne, I'm surprised. You of all people should have this stamp set because I know you were just recently in Hawaii. So I bet this is like, between this and the Botanical Bliss, that's a retired stamp set. That was one of my favorites. But this, and I'm sure, oh, you know what would look nice with this too is a little bit of coral. So maybe we'll add those little doodads in coral instead of doing a second flower. I was very jealous of your trip. It looked like it was beautiful and so much fun. Okay, so there's our purple. And again, there's probably not fully purple hibiscuses and hibisci in real life, but in my craft studio there is. That's what you have creative license, right? Okay, so now I'm going to do this last thing. I'm going to add this in pink, whatever these little doodads are. Not in pink, in Calypso Coral. So we'll add these. There's a good spot. The coral will pick up, but I don't really want to cover that. I'm going to go in the middle. So I'm going to pick that up. I am going to put this down, and we'll go with our Calypso Coral. I agree with you. This is probably a much cheaper way. I know sometimes that they do have some specials with the builders, and don't get me wrong, a part of me does kind of feel guilty because it's like, well, you know, you design something, but at the same time, if I can find a way to sometimes make something cheaper and then I can buy more stuff with it, I think I'd be able to buy more ink and paper or more DSP. And quite honestly, the other thing is too, I know a lot of times Stampin' Up! Doesn't come out with like every single thing that, oops, new companies, or not new companies even necessarily, products that people put out. So a lot of times I'll try to think of like a way to work around things. So for example, that reflection card, when I made that years ago, I did it with whatever that ship stamp set is, and I can't think of it at the time, but it's a big ship stamp set. It's a beautiful stamp set. It's retired. If anybody can remember the name of it, shout it out. But I used that one at the time with the Stamp-A-Majig mat, which was good. Don't get me wrong, worked well at the time. But since then, you can also do it because what you'll be doing is stamping onto either one of two things. You can either purchase basically it's like a blank photopolymer rectangle, and then you're going to stamp your image on it. Or, so there we'll be done with that. That looks cute. I feel like I need something out here, but I don't want to mess it up. Sometimes I go overboard and then too much. Or what you can do is you can use the back of some of your photopolymer stamps. So as you can see, this one I did retrofit. It's got a little piece on there. So that's why this one is sticking versus the others that did it. Okay, so now I'm going to take this out. I'm going to just set this on the side. And I'm going to layer this onto something. I'm not quite sure what, but what I'm going to do in the meantime is I am going to, oh, there's dimensionals everywhere. I'm going to run my embossing buddy over top of this to make sure that everything is dry and to cut down on the static, because I am going to heat emboss the center of this card. Okay, so let's see. So this one I did You Are the Greatest. Rainbow Stamper picked that. But I'm going to just do Thank You because I think it's really pretty. And again, if you wanted to add something else to it, you could use these little lines and you could add like something in the background. Lots of possibilities. And I think I'm going to do this with, gosh, anybody have any suggestions what colors? We have lots of colors to emboss with. And then, you know, we can also kind of make our own colors. So let's see what's in here. We have the In Colors. Now, if any of these would be a little bit too bright, because the lipstick, that would look a little crazy. You know what we could do it with, though? We could do it with the grapefruit. I'm not sure if that would work well or not, so I'm going to leave that up to you. I have grapefruit. We could do silver. We could do black. Black really stood out. We have gold, silver. We could do champagne. If you haven't done that, you mix silver and gold together. You can do champagne. There is copper. Okay, so I'm going to watch the comments and see. Purple. The other thing you could do too is, here's another idea. So if you haven't done this before, you can use the clear embossing powder. And what you would do is you stamp your stamp in Versamark, and then you stamp it in the ink color you want, stamp it in there, and then you add clear to it as well. So black, black, black. I see purple, purple. Thank you. Inkadoo Stamping Gears. Gina K brought the square design. Thanks, Brina. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that, because I like to give credit where credit is due, because again, I'm certainly not the first person to do, I'm sure, absolutely any stamping technique whatsoever. All right, so I got a lot of purple and I got a lot of black, but since maybe you haven't seen purple before with doing this, I'm going to do purple. So I have my clear powder out, and I'll show you guys how to do that if you have never seen it before. So it'll be like 3-for-1 new video today. And just in case you haven't, I also have this little Tupperware container here that I got at the dollar store. I got 2 of them. So if you mix, you could do this with many colors. This one is green and silver, but it kind of makes it like a pearlized green. If you mix gold and silver embossing together, you get champagne. So just in case you didn't know that. All right, so what we're going to do is we have our clear powder, and we have our, I'll do Gorgeous Grape and the Versamark. So I'm going to, let me make sure this is mounted on something really well. Actually, this has a retrofitted piece of sticky, so that's going to work well. All right, so I already went over with my embossing buddy. So what we're going to do is we're going to stamp in the Versamark first. And my Versamark, you can see, is pretty dirty looking. It does not affect it whatsoever, so you don't ever have to worry about that. So I'm going to make sure that's nice and sticky. You can also buy refill to refill your stamp. And then I'm going to stamp it into my Gorgeous Grape ink. Now this part you probably have to do a little quicker, but I'm not really sure how quick. So I'm going to move this so I can see. Hopefully that's straight. Find out in a minute. Now I'm going to take my clear embossing powder and dump it on top of the Thank You. Now I probably got a little overzealous with that. Let me close these up. Okay. You do want to make sure, and it doesn't have to be instant, but that you do heat emboss anything that you use the embossing powder with sooner than later, One year I was doing my Christmas cards, and I thought, oh, I'm going to save time. I'm going to stamp them all, and then I'll go back. Well, by then some of the powder had dried off, so don't do that. So I'm going to turn my heat tool on and let it get good and hot. Oh my gosh, Dana, that's too funny. So I'm going to let it get really hot. That way it doesn't wrinkle up my paper so much. So I'm just going to move in a circle, and it does turn pretty quickly, but it did warp it just a slight bit. But you can see there, so you can see the shiny. So then we have the thank you, which is gorgeous. So that was a good idea. All right, and I'm going to back it on, I don't know, I think we might do like mint and coral. I think that'll be really pretty to do those together. So we'll do like a mint base and a coral layer just to bring that Calypso coral in. If I can find it here. There we go. So what I did for this was, so we'll see how this looks. That's really pretty. All right, so if you want to keep this, again, we did do this with the largest square, so this layer is 5 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a layer of Calypso coral. I'm just going to cut it to 5 1/4. Let me go this way because that way I won't be wasting as much paper. So 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. So that will be our layer. And then this one is going to be, let's see, 5 1/2. I'm going to go ahead and score this. And then this should be 5 1/2 left over. That's right. And then I'm going to just cut this to 5 1/2. So with your little leftover piece here, maybe you can make like a little skinny card, a little skinny thank you card to go with that as well. All right, so I'm going to take my bone folder and just make sure this is nicely creased. Okay, and then I'm going to just put this down. Since this is a little wonky from the heat embossing, I am going to use Fast Fuse. So if you have any Fast Fuse left, now's the time to use it. If not, you could use Tombow liquid glue. If you really want to flatten it, you could put it in between a piece of copy paper, printer paper, whatever you want to call it, that's folded in half, and run it through your Big Shot. That does help to flatten it out a little bit. You could put some blocks on it to kind of flatten it. I'm just going to layer this one to this piece. If you wanted to step this up another layer, and I just noticed that purple thing down there, you could also, before you glue these together, you could stamp this little pattern along the edge there underneath on the coral, so you could do coral on coral. That would be pretty. Let's see if I can erase this. So I have this marker. It's a sand and rubber eraser from Tombow. They actually sell this on Amazon as well. You do have to be careful because it actually does sand off a layer of your paper. So if you are a little too vigorous with it, you can kind of create a hole in your paper. But you have to be gentle and kind of do it in steps. Almost done. So that's going to be good enough for me. I don't want to erase too low, but you can see that almost completely erased it. But if you feel it, you can definitely feel it softer. But it's a double-sided eraser. So when I post the blog post, I'll link to that in the description. And then again, I'm going to add some, Fast Fuse to the back of this. You could add a little bit of ribbon if you wanted to make it more fancy. Another fun thing to do, if you have these, and I'll show you. You could add this in if you felt like it. We could have done this to cover up that goof that I just did. And because these are going to be going away most likely when the catalog ends, is you could add, where are they? Oh my gosh, I probably just had them here. Let's see. I just bought them. Here they are, right in front of me. You could add the tropical elements. So if you had a little thing there that you didn't want to erase, you could put like, I don't know, you could put a couple of these little things if you wanted to add something onto it. Put a little bit of string through this and add it on the bottom. You could kind of put these in at different spots if you wanted to. So, not necessarily something you have to do, but if you're looking for something to cover up a little whoopsie that you made, that would be a good idea. So the tropical elements, most likely, I'm really hoping that this tropical chic bundle carries over. It won't be a bundle once it goes because it does also have a coordinating die, which hang on, I happen to have here. So if you buy these two things together, you do save 10%. So it does have, you can cut these out. You can see, if you remember this card I shared earlier, this is some of that Tropical Chic DSP in the background, and then I cut a couple things out of it. But this is a really nice stamp set. So this kind of cuts a window. You can make this into a shaker card. You can put a window sheet behind it. You can put those little elements in it, but it cuts out the hibiscus. I'm really hoping that this carries over because this is one of my favorite things. It reminds me, number one, I remember when I said this when I first saw it. It reminds me of the Golden Girls, which I love, the Golden Girls. But it also just reminds me of, oops, vacation in Florida and just summer, because I love summer. I mean, I love spring, I love fall. Winter is definitely not my favorite. Summer is my fave, my absolute fave. So I'm hoping this carries over, but you never know. It could not. So there are a couple cards made with it. And then again, this one, remember we used the clear embossing powder with the Versamark and the gorgeous grape ink. So that was cool. Another thing worth mentioning is that anything, and I know it's a little early for this, but just in case, because it does sell out, anything that has these ink colors in it, these ink colors are going to retire on May 31st. So if there is, now not necessarily the inks, because they still usually have the inks up until May 31st, but if there's like DSP or ribbon, you might want to get your hands on it soon. I'm really, really hoping some of these colors carry over into the next catalog. Does anybody have one of these colors that is their favorite? Because I really love these three. I mean, I like these two too, don't get me wrong, but I think these three are my favorite because I love the fig. But the lemon lime twist, that's one that I really hope that they don't get rid of. So if you have these pads, one smart idea to add, if you're placing an order anyway, one smart idea to add to it would be the re-inker. Because that way, worst case scenario, at least you'll have a full bottle of re-inker. It's not really that expensive. I think they're like $3.50 maybe. So you can get a bottle of re-inker. That way, if you have your pad, I know a lot of people have searched and searched for some colors that are no longer there. And if you don't have the ink refill, you can't refill it. But that's like a really simple way to be able to keep something that you like. If you love Tranquil Tide, get yourself a, I've gotten in the past 2 bottles of re-inker. As a matter of fact, for Soft Sky, Island Indigo, and I think even Tempting Turquoise, I have 2 backup bottles. So I have like my bottle that I already had, and then I got a second one just to be on the safe side. So thank you guys so much for joining me to make this today. Again, when I have some time, I will make a clean version, a shorter version, I should say. Not that we were dirty. A clean version of how to make the wreath builder template. So I will do that again, and I'll put that eventually. When I get that done, I'll relink that into the blog post. I will put all this stuff on the blog as soon as I get it all photographed and written up. You can find my blog at rachthestamper.com. If you're new and you don't know where to go. I do come on here every Wednesday live at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, barring that I'm not late or something like that. And then again, what I'll try and do is, I definitely can't do it tomorrow, but Friday, I'm going to see if I can hop back on live and make one of the other cards that we did. And whatever one I didn't do, we'll either save another one for next Wednesday, or I'll try to make some videos and post them. I usually post them to YouTube first. So if you happen to not be able to find them, YouTube is usually where it is. And you can find me on YouTube and on Instagram at Rachthestamper. If you have a question, you can send me a message here on Facebook, or you can reach me at rachthestamper@gmail.com. Don't forget, right now during celebration, if you purchase $50, you get 1 free celebration item. There's going to be some new stuff, I believe, coming soon, and I'll let you know about that as well. If you would like to subscribe to my newsletter, all you have to do is send me an email, and I'll be happy to add you to it. It's free, no obligation. I won't send you any junk mail or spam, I promise. Sometimes I don't even send them that often. So thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you very soon. I will see you Friday, if not before. Have a great week.